And we are on air. Welcome to the Handmaid's Tale Novel Insights with Real Impact. This is Season 1, Episode 13, Resistance and Rebellion. The purpose of this podcast is to talk about all things related to the Handmaid's Tale and its relation to the real world. Everybody get your Scrabble boards and let's get right into the podcast.
And I would tell you today's sponsors, but I am rebelling because my raise was denied. Huh? Oh, perfect. Okay. I was just told that I will get that raise, so I'd like to thank our sponsors Privacy VPN, Misty's Custom Pins, Mike Start, and Civic Trek.
You want me to say something as well? Yeah, as if, with the way I get treated around here, you couldn't even get a single word out of me. Bleh.
All right, so before we get started with our discussion, we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves.
My name is Adrian and I'm a professional sports broadcaster.
My name is Juan, and I just got a raise.
I refuse. You should know who I am. My name is Ethan, and I tend to talk in this podcast. I work as a local mechanic, and honestly, I'm just on here to put my voice out there and say what I have to say.
Now that you know a little bit more about us, let's get right into the podcast. But first, a message from our first sponsor.
This message has been approved by absolutely no governing body, yet today's sponsor is Privacy Shield VPN, because whether you're reading controversial books or just Googling things you'd rather not explain, your data deserves protection. Stay anonymous, stay curious, stay unmonitored.
All right, thank you to our sponsor, Privacy Shield VPN. Now let's get into our prepared discussion. We'll each take turns talking about our claims and how they're seen in the book The Handmaid's Tale and in real life.
My claim is when governments exercise their power to control people and their freedom, it's bound to cause a rebellion. I chose this claim because it's persistent throughout the book. The entire Republic of Gilead is bent on controlling women and their bodies, keeping them used for one thing and one thing only. It's also seen in many forms in the real world. For example, things like ICE and their impact on Hispanics, creating protests for immigration laws and against ICE.
All right, let's take a quick break as we have a message from our second sponsor.
Misty's Custom Pins. She's discounting some political resistance pins and sending a portion of the sales to the support groups. Make sure to use our code HandmadeImpact to get this deal right now.
Thank you to Misty's Custom Pins for sponsoring today's episode. Let's get into our second claim.
I claim that there will always be resistance to any change, and I chose this claim because the handmaids would resist if they had the power to, since they do not like their roles. The system is designed to stop these resistances. Their rooms are structured to not allow bodily harm to themselves, which is one of the only choices they could have made if they were able to. But this right to rebel was taken away from them. Here in the US, when abortion was made illegal in certain states, there was backlash from multiple people. People protested, people traveled to other states for abortions. But there are always two sides to a change. Other people have also supported this change and have backed it up. One side does not like the other. One side wants power over the other. The system wants power over its citizens. Gilead wants power over the handmaids.
All right, now let's hear this message from our next sponsor, Mike Start.
Do you ever listen to podcasts and think, wow, I could be in an existential dread and record it? Good news, you can. With today's sponsor, Mike Start. These affordable podcasting kits for inspiring voices. Because if the world is going to change, you might as well start documenting it.
Thank you to Ethan for that message, and thank you to Mike Star for sponsoring today's episode. Let's get into our last claim from Ethan.
The claim I serve behind is stated, even small acts of rebellion can challenge a powerful system. And, to be honest, this is constantly true, like seen in fiction such as The Handmaid's Tale, with the Guildies rules the maids must follow under. Yet we see characters like Offred, for example, who tend to play scramble matches with the commander to overturn the system, making him practically depend on her for companionship. Small acts like this can also challenge power. I mean, this is seen within the civil rights movement, where individuals refusing to follow unfair rules help spark bigger change.
Last but not least, our final message from our final sponsor, Civic Trek.
This episode is brought to you by Civic Trek, an app that helps you stay informed about laws, rights, and changes that actually affect your life. Because sometimes the scariest fiction isn't fiction. Stay informed and stay aware.
Thank you to Civic Trek and all of our sponsors for sponsoring today's episodes. Now let's get into our mailbag questions.
I'll be getting our mailbag questions, and our first question comes from the president of Puerto Rico. He asks, how does The Handmaid's Tale portray different forms of resistance, both overt and subtle? And to what extent are small individual acts of defiance significant as organized rebellion? That's a great question, Mr. President. Does anyone want to take a stab at it?
Alfred mentions how her room seems to have had a chandelier removed, and also says how there is no places to hang a rope. These small things add up because they are left with less and less until they have nothing. If a government were to limit free speech for the sake of protection, it could be justified. But then they take the ability to have private conversations, the ability to buy whatever you want, and then at the very end, the protections they advertise for all these changes. The small things are the easiest to overlook because they are small. These small changes make a rebellion.
Hopefully you heard all of that, Mr. President. Now we'll move on to the next mailbag question. This is from a local high school teacher whose name cannot be revealed because they will explode. Their question is, what factors influence whether individuals choose to resist or comply within oppressive systems? And how are these choices reflected in the character of the novel? I'll go ahead and answer this one. The main factor that influences some to resist an oppressive system is freedom. When someone is being influenced by these systems, they usually have some kind of rights or will taken away from them, so they resist to regain these rights or wills. This is seen in The Handmaid's Tale when Offred decides to rebel by secretly sneaking out to see the commander after hours. They end up playing Scrabble, and everything about these frequent encounters goes against what Gilead stands for. A reason someone might want to comply with oppressive systems is because they feel like the new system will lead to the enhancement of society, or they just don't have any other choice but to comply. This is seen in The Handmaid's Tale because people comply with Gilead because their goal is to breed women and make more babies to help the declining population. And that was the end of our mailbag questions. Thank you to everyone who submitted the questions. We send our greatest thank yous and a warm gift basket brought to you by each of our sponsors.
Wait, now you must skip the words I have to say? No. Like, have you ever even wondered to what extent does resistance become effective when going against a authoritarian power? Well, in my opinion, it shifts effectiveness when acting out of defiance goes into group collective movements that come together and oppose the economy or even convince the military to stop following orders. And then I began to think about Atwood's deception of rebellion and how this kind of mirrors like the secret networks seen within the Mayday group when compared to real world movements for change. Like mentioned before, the civil rights movement, where people work together through protests and boycotts to kind of force this change. This has proven that Atwood's suggestion with Mayday, resistance is more effective when it's not just one person, but a group together acting to challenge a power and overthrow it.
Okay, now that was the end of our mailbag questions. I apologize to Ethan. I don't know how I forgot about you. But once again, thank you to our sponsors. And that was the end of episode 13 of The Handmaid's Tale Novel Insights Real Impact. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we hope you stick around to listen to our other episodes. Once again, thank you to our sponsors and anyone involved in our mailbag questions. I'd like to thank my cast members, Ethan and Juan, for their cooperation. And we'll leave our listeners with a call to action from each of us. We'll see you guys soon.
Stand up and protest for what you believe in.
Stand up and protest for what you believe in.
Stand up and protest for what you believe in.